Now let's do our shift method. Shift, we are going to move head over to the next item. We're going to remove the first item and we're going to return it. So same terminology as we used with an array when we are removing the first item. So we have a couple of other scenarios that we have to code for. The first one being if we only have one item in the linked list, and the other one being if we don't have any items in the linked list. So if you want to code this, go ahead and pause the video here and give it a shot. Okay, so we'll start our code out like this. This is going to be our first scenario that we code for, is if we have an empty linked list. And we'll just do this like this. If head is null, we're going to return undefined. And our next scenario is going to be if we have two or more items in the linked list. And we'll code this. So remember, we're not only removing this item, we're going to return it. And if we're going to return it, we have to have a variable set equal to it. And we have head equal to it now. So we'll have this variable be set equal to head. We'll do that like this. Let temp equal this dot head. Then we want to move head over to the next item. So we're going to set head equal to head dot next, like that. We do that with this line of code. This dot head equals this dot head dot next. Then we need to remove this item. It's not good enough just to return temp as it is, because if you do, you're not going to just get that 11 node, but the 11 node has the 3 node connected to it, and so on and so on. You'll get the entire linked list. So you have to set temp equal to null to actually break that connection. So temp.next equals null will do that for us, and we will be returning temp at the end of this, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and remove it like that. Then we just need to decrement the length by 1. Now we're going to code for when we have one item in the linked list. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep those last 4 lines of code because that's all that's going to be relevant here. That if statement's not going to be relevant. And show what happens when we run this code when we have one item. So let temp equal this dot head. That's going to have temp point to that same node that head is pointing to. Let's remove that line of code. Then we're going to say this dot head equals this dot head dot next. So head dot next is null. So this sets head equal to null. Then we say temp dot next equals null. Well, temp dot next is already null, so that doesn't do anything. And then the only thing left to do is to decrement the length. Well, the length was 1, and this changes it to 0. So we've run all this code, we've gotten the length to 0, and tail is still pointing at that node. So what we need to do is say, if the length is 0, have tail equal null. And that fixes that problem. Let's put this code in with the rest of our code and have a look at this. And then I want to emphasize that this if statement for the length being 0 is after we have decremented the length here. It was 1, we decremented it, and then it's 0. And now the only thing left to do is return temp, which is the item that we shifted off. So we'll look at this code in a moment in Chrome DevTools. And when we do, we're going to create this linked list. And the reason for that is we have 3 different scenarios. So we can test shifting one off with 2 or more, then we can test with 1 item, and then we can test running this with no items, which should return undefined. So let's flip over to DevTools, and we'll start out by creating this linked list here. Okay, so let's zoom in here. Here's our method, and this is where we create our linked list with our 2 items in it. We'll zoom back out and run this. And that has created this linked list here where head is pointing to 2 and tail is pointing to 1. So let's clear this off. And then we'll say myLinkedList.shift like that. And now we've removed that 2 node. So if we type in myLinkedList, now the linked list only has 1 item in there with a value of 1. Let's clear this off and try this out with only 1 item in the linked list. Make sure that works. And now that's returned that one node. And let's clear this and try this with our empty linked list to make sure that this is working correctly as well. And that is indeed returning undefined. All right, that is our method for shift.